I don't actually think it is Trump as such. He's been remarkably consistent. I think it is the market struggling with a more volatile world.
What kind of sectors are your favourites at the moment?
Well, you've got to say defence. It's a huge experiment. I warrant that it's, the jury's out.
Well, you can't say it's not bold, can you?
It's bold. But there's one caveat. I do still like gold. I do.
These tariffs, it cannot be good for economic growth around the world. How is protectionism good? Is this the end of globalisation? How do investors cope with all the volatility right now? Is there a safe way to go?
I think
all things could change within the next 10 minutes, couldn't they?
Yes, although I'm slightly reticent to consider this to be a new phenomenon. I think this is kind of more business as usual. I think this is more the world we've had for 40-odd years.
You don't think that he's got more loyal people around him this time, whereas they were dispensed, you remember, in the last administration at the drop of a hat.
So, here's the let's talk just specifically about Trump. Difference between Trump 1 and Trump 2 is the mandate. He's got one, a big one, popular vote, controls all three branches of the government, and they appear to be enthralled to him, such that, as you say, the loyalists around him can say and do what he likes. So that is a difference. And the economy is in a different place because we now have inflation, which we didn't really have so much back then. But where I'm getting to here with this uncertainty and a lot of agonising everyone's having about everything is, we'll come on to this, I don't actually think it is Trump as such. He's been remarkably consistent. I think it is the market struggling with a more volatile world after, frankly, a bit of an easy run for the last 2 years, where the S&P just went up no matter what, on very low volatility.
These tariffs, it cannot be good for economic growth around the world. How is protectionism good? Is this the end of globalisation?
It is. Now, here's the thing. I was at a Bank of England conference last year, and Swati Dhingra, who was a trade economist, she's on the MPC, said tariffs are disinflationary. Because if, and this is the economic textbook, if you get hit by a tariff and you can't export to that country, well, you cut your prices to make up for market share in another country. Now, it's not a perfect substitute. It's not, we're not in economic textbook land, but there is an angle to this where there is a disinflationary impact. So I get, yes, of course, there's a sticker price potential shock, depending on how much a company passes it on to the consumers. But again, you see, you can sustain inflation if you get growth, and Trump will be arguing that all of these reforms he's doing, chopping the federal government, cutting taxes, reducing immigration, is going to lead to more growth. It's a huge experiment. I warrant that it's, the jury's out.
Well, you can't say it's not bold, can you?
It's bold. It's bold. And the thing about the tariffs, they'll be on and they'll be off. Are you in the gang? Are you not? Are you playing the game? Who are you joining up with? This is what it's all about. It's America Inc. Do you want to be a part of it? And so I just don't quite share the same
negative approach?
Fully pessimistic disaster of tariffs. I think there's a lot more to it than that.
Let's talk about Musk now, Musk and Tesla. Is he a persona non grata as far as investors are concerned now?
It's starting to become that way, isn't it? I mean, looking at some of the moves recently in the Tesla share price, not entirely fully fundamentally justified. There's got to be a bit in there that seems to be a turning away from Musk.
There was an interesting piece of data at the beginning of last year, which I'm sure wouldn't have escaped your beady eyes. But Tesla's capital value was in excess of Honda and Toyota, who produce probably 10 times more motor cars than they do. So there was a case, Michael, I think, of it being unbelievably inflated because electric cars were new and they're obviously the new way forward. And I think that mustn't be forgotten.
No, I mean, as with all new technologies, how do you justify what the value of it is? Well, you're going to have to project out, aren't you, what adoption will be and what, the infrastructure cost is and all the rest of it. I mean, I think Elon Musk himself has admitted what did he say, stretched thin, or it's terribly difficult doing all these things that he's doing. And actually, that's a lot of CEOs have come a cropper from that, haven't they? Where they've, over the years, been invested in other projects or seem to be doing something that's not the core business. So I think some of this is to be expected for Tesla. It's funny though, isn't it? Tesla's this, again, it's almost an emotional word for some people. It's so wrapped up with Musk, and people have very, very strong feelings about him. And you know what? He is a little bit an architect of this. He wants the strong feelings because if you go on social media and rant about something, that's great for his investment, isn't it? So, he sort of profits from controversy that way.
Do you think, just staying with the United States now, do you think there is a feeling amongst investors that they want to pull out of the so-called Magnificent Seven? Because, now here's one argument that I've heard advanced towards that, because they've spent so much, their capital expenditure has been so much on AI that they have to have astounding results, not just good like NVIDIA, but astounding results to support that. And do you feel investors are getting a whiff of that and are starting to rotate out of those stocks?
Yes, I think there's a fear it was frothy valuations that couldn't really be supported by the fundamentals of... Some of this is literally bits and bobs to go in the supply chain. The actual assembly of these chips that go into the AI, you hit bottlenecks, don't you? You have to.
Also, be careful what you wish for. When you consider that Taiwan is, 40% of the chip market in the world, and if President Xi has designs, to completely say that it's run its race in the United States, I'm not sure. I think, as far as you're concerned, as far as NVIDIA got way over the top. But
I put some of this down to, and I expect to see more of it, in my more volatile world. Now, volatile doesn't mean all bad. It means you could get some very good outcomes, but also some very bad outcomes. You've got to have a little bit more in cash. And I refer back to, there's a Bank of America fund manager survey. It's been going for a long time. Cash levels were at almost record lows at the start of this year. The last few years, everyone learned, they call it FOMO, buy the dip, fear of missing out, get in the market. And I think everyone got a bit over their skis with that, and they want to just take a bit off the table. And I think that's very rational.
So does that mean disregarding the traditional, the safeties like gold and oil and other commodities and so on? Do you think, or because that's almost what you're saying, isn't it? The time sort of moved on.
Yeah, now. And then we're in rare minerals now, aren't we? We're in rare minerals.
Well, exactly. I was going to ask you what your favourite commodity was, and then I'm thinking it's probably a handful of rare minerals, right?
Lithium and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, lithium, cobalt. I see Trump wants to explore putting mineral sites in Pentagon facilities. Again, this point of make it where you can see it and you can extract, what you're doing. But there's one caveat. I do still like gold. I do, because of the volatility I'm talking about, which is everyone's going to want some kind of safe haven. And it is a more uncertain world. We're going to have to get used to this. And at that point, you do need a little bit to stick to what you know.
And the central banks are heavily involved as well.
Central banks are involved. It's always the go-to in the world of what have I got, where is it? It's always been the inflation hedge, although there's been up and down about it. But you're going to want liquidity. You're going to want something you know. So, fine to have your lithium and cobalt interests, but I still think gold forms part of the process.
We've talked about volatility and we've talked about things changing. What kind of sectors are your favourites at the moment?
So I think, you've got to say defence. And I think we're going to come on to that.
Let's
I think it's
let's do European defence stocks to start with. Yeah.
I cannot overstate enough the shift out of Germany and more broadly Europe in what they are now planning. If I might for a moment talk about this change in Germany, where so they've just had an election. The likely next chancellor has come out, said we're forming a coalition. We're going to spend a lot more on defence. We're going to spend more on infrastructure as well, actually. That is astonishing. This is a country that constitutionally has written in don't spend more than 0.35% because of this debt break. And as we all know, culturally, not been very keen on, understandably, putting a lot of money into the military. And the numbers we are talking are huge. There's some analysis suggesting, I saw some economists were talking about 2 trillion euros worth is going to go into defence. Germany's debt to GDP ratio can go from 64% to 12 percentage points higher. That's massive. Massive. So we've only just begun.